everyone, I'm extremely lucky to be able to interview the extraordinary Meg Caddy. Meg is an incredible author who has a BA in English Literature and History from the University of Western Australia and has finished her honours dissertation on pirates. She also works in a bookstore. How awesome is that?
It's so good. It's so much fun. It's a dream job.
It's my dream job too.
Is it?
Yes.
Come work with me.
I think that Meg is a really inspirational author because of how she runs workshops to inspire and get the next generation of young writers pumped up about reading and writing. I think I just said writing.
That's okay.
Meg, thank you so much for letting me grow you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so wonderful to finally meet you.
You too. And I love that we're both rocking the short hair here. That's great.
Did you always know you wanted to be an author or not really?
I did. I always knew I wanted to write, and I also always knew that I could be a writer, which I think sometimes those are very different things. But I'm very lucky because my dad is a children's author, so he sort of taught me a lot about what it means to be a writer and the hard work you have to put in and how much fun it is. But also, all three of my brothers are professional musicians, so we all work in very creative industries, and we're all quite good at supporting each other and taking care of each other. So thanks to my family, I've always been sort of very aware that it's something that is possible to do.
It's amazing that they support it.
Yeah, and my parents read every draft, and my brothers always read my books and come along to the book launches, and so I've been very lucky to be born into the family I'm born into.
That's amazing.
It is, it's quite great. But you have the same as well, don't you? You've got a very supportive family when it comes to your writing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about what ages would you recommend it? What is it about?
So I'm always a little bit hesitant to sort of recommend an actual age, because when you work in a bookshop, people say, oh, is this right for a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old? And it's really more about what maturity that kid is, exactly, and what they enjoy, what their reading level is. So if I was talking about where, I'd say if they've read The Hunger Games and enjoyed it, if they've read Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, that sort of thing, then they might enjoy it. It can be a little violent at times, but there's nothing sort of too graphic in it.
I will definitely love that book then.
Oh, that is good to hear.
I've loved the Percy Jackson series.
Oh, aren't they fantastic?
So amazing. What was your favourite scene to write out of if you have any?
That's an interesting question, because when you write a book and get it to the stage where it's published, often you kind of write it a couple of times. So when I first wrote Where, I was 14, and then it's been rewritten time and time again since then. And when I was 14 and I wrote it, I really liked all the battle scenes, and I really liked everything that involved like lots of high stakes and adventure. But then when I was doing the final edits and just sort of getting it ready to be published, I really enjoyed the scenes where they were sort of sitting down and eating food together, or having little moments where they were telling stories and like really focusing on those character bits. So I think sort of every time you write a new draft, you're kind of thinking about different scenes that you enjoy writing more.
Yeah, I find it really hard to pinpoint a scene because I love the battle scenes because it's all adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's adrenaline of writing it, it's adrenaline of reading it, and then it's like, but I like this scene when they're sitting around a fire eating food.
Exactly, because you get those really like emotional character connections, and I love that. So I think, as we came to the final drafts, I think because I've been working on this book for so long, it kind of felt like I was getting ready to send them out into the world, and it was a little bit like goodbyes for some of the characters. So touching base with them and having those little character moments were really important for me.
So, you do workshops with kids. What would have to be your favourite part about doing workshops?
Well, it's probably getting to know all these kids who are really excited about reading and writing. And so hearing what all these young people are reading, hearing what they love about it, and also sort of seeing young people doing things I wouldn't have dreamed of when I was their age. So, for example, like you, Imani, interviewing all these authors, and you sent me the questions in advance so I would be aware of it, really professional. I would never have had the wherewithal to do that when I was your age. And so it's really cool to see young people sort of moving and shaking things and doing things that I just wouldn't have even considered. Because it makes me feel very inspired, and it makes me feel very hopeful about all these young writers who are up and coming, and excited about what they're going to write.
Yeah.
So, getting comfortable?
Getting comfy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that's because writers now are just jumping in there, really getting it.
Yeah, you're right. And people are getting into writing in so many different ways.
Yeah.
There's lots of people self-publishing, lots of people writing in pairs, writing with other people, or
Like co-authoring.
Yeah, co-authoring, or like illustrating and writing, or doing graphic novels. And there's so much that's exciting and new in social media as well. And I think when I'm doing talks, I kind of always bear that in mind, and I'm always sort of thinking about what am I telling to young people, and also what can I learn from them. And that's probably the best bit for me.
What is something frivolous, like when you're a rich and famous author you just want to spend some money on?
Do you know what Dungeons and Dragons is?
Yes, I have heard of it.
Okay, so it's a game that you play and you sort of pretend to be different characters, and it's almost like a big storytelling game. And it's my absolute favourite thing to do when I'm not writing or at the bookshop. So I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. And when you're playing that game, you have dice that you roll to see whether your character can do something or not. And you end up collecting a lot of dice. And so if I was to spend like some frivolous money, it would probably be on some really nice D&D dice. It sounds very nerdy, and it is very nerdy, but it's one of those things.
Being nerdy is okay. It's the best thing.
You got to kind of embrace it, I think. You lean into it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's when you find your people.
Exactly. Like if you're like a huge Harry Potter fan, by embracing it, you can find other Harry Potter fans.
Well, exactly. I mean, we have matching Harry Potter bags.
True.
So we just knew straight away that we were going to get along.
Exactly. Going back to the workshops, have you had any embarrassing, funny, or just straight up awkward moments, or have it all been pretty good?
It has not been all pretty smooth. I can tell you that for sure. In one of my first talks, it was my first ever book week, and I had a group of year 2s that I was giving a talk to. And I hadn't really judged the timing of my material right, so I still had about 15 to 20 minutes left over, and I didn't really know what to do. So I thought I'd just tell them a story that my dad used to tell me when I was little. And I got about halfway through the story when I realized that it was way too scary for year 2s. And probably my dad shouldn't have told me it when I was little. So I'm telling this story, and I'm looking at the teachers' faces, and they're just, and these kids are looking at me like big eyes. Some of them don't get it, and some of them are starting to get scared. But I was kind of already telling the story and already in it, so I just had to finish the story. And I don't think I've done a talk for that school again. So it taught me some lessons about how to judge my audience and prepare sort of backup bonus material in case you run out in the time. So, it's one of those things, you learn a lesson from it and you move on, and I won't be telling that story at a book talk anymore.
Not anymore.
No, never again. And I should probably have a word with my dad about it as well.
Probably. Just a bit
Yeah,
scared.
maybe a little.
Just a little bit.
It's like a very traditional Western Australian old fairy tale called the Hobyards. And it's a very strange little story, and it used to scare the life out of me when I was little. I don't know what possessed me to start telling it. I really don't.
Maybe you were just like, oh, these kids, they won't stop.
Maybe they just need a little bit of fear.
Just a little
That's it.
So same thing you inject into your characters.
Maybe I'll just, have a new brand of author talk where you just frighten children. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. They won't be traumatized.
No, not at all.
So you love pirates.
I do.
What is it that you love most about them?
Well, I really love history. So I studied history at university and I'm really interested in that. And then the thing about pirates particularly is that they were creating their own societies on their ships. And each ship had a different society. And they would have what they called the articles. So when you went onto a new ship, you had to sign the articles, which were the laws of the ship. And each one had different rules and laws. And what I kind of love is that in the 1700s, so in the 18th century, when piracy was really in full swing, the world on land had all these very strict laws and all these strict rules about what you could and couldn't do. And a lot of pirates and pirate crews were kind of shrugging those laws off, shrugging those rules away. So I'm particularly interested in female pirates because on land, they couldn't be who they wanted to be. And then when they went to sea, they kind of started these new lives themselves and made their own rules. And I find that really exciting and interesting. And I also love that, well, when you're writing about pirates, you're not writing about people who are straight up good. You're writing about people who have a lot of bad in them and a lot of questionable morals, and I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix.
Exactly, and it can be a lot of fun because they'll do things that are daring and cheeky and full of attitude. And also you have to think about why they're doing what they're doing, why did they become pirates, and you're trying to find the sort of human stories in them. So when I'm writing about pirates, I'm always really interested in what really happened, what could have happened, and what people think about it as well. So it's all about pirates to me at the moment. And when I say at the moment, I mean really for the last 9 years, because I started writing about pirates in 2010. So that's been a big chunk of my life now.
Well, pirates are awesome.
They are, I agree, thank you.
Pirates are awesome.
Yeah.
So now on to the speed questions.
Okay, speed questions. Now, speed questions, do you want like one-word answers, or is it speedy because you're asking them speedily? Do you want me to make my answers very quick or my answers a bit longer? What do you prefer?
Well, the speed question is to try to get me to not respond as long.
Okay.
Because we've been drawing the interviews out because of that. They've been getting longer and longer and longer.
Authors like to chat.
chatting
It's
for
one of those
people.
things. It's
We're
true. Okay, hit me with the speed questions.
What are you writing at the moment?
I'm writing Anne Bonny 2, so more pirates.
What's your favourite ice cream flavour?
It's a bit fancy, but it's lavender. I tried lavender ice cream once and it was the best thing I've ever tasted. I love it.
There's lavender ice
There's
cream.
lavender ice cream. It blew my mind, and now every time I have ice cream I'm like, oh, but this could be lavender flavoured.
What's one of your favourite books or stories that you've written?
You know, I think I always love the one that I'm working on. So at the moment, my favourite one is the one that I'm writing, that's not finished, that no one's read yet, because it's exciting and it's all new to me. So if you're talking about what I've written and finished and published, probably Devil's Ballast, because it has so many pirates in it, and I feel it's like probably more current to who I am. But if you're talking about sort of what's my favourite thing in general that I've written, it's what I'm currently writing.
How long did it take you to write Where or any of your books?
It took me 10 years. So I started Where when I was 14, and in high school, and I wrote it the whole way through high school, and then I rewrote it all through uni, and then it came out when I was 24.
Who is your favourite or most inspirational author?
Do I have to say my dad? I might have to say my dad. It's otherwise I might go home and he'll tell me I can't have dinner there. But to tell you the truth, we're really lucky living in WA and writing in WA because there are so many lovely authors here, and they're all very kind, and they're all really good at helping young people in their writing journey. So all the people from Squibby, which is where you and I met, they're also very inspirational to me because they work so hard, they produce these beautiful books, and also because they're so kind to other people who are starting their writing journey.
And I was so blessed.
We are. #blessed.
Do you prefer cats or dogs?
I love cats, and I love dogs, and I love lizards and birds. Anything I'm happy with. But I do have 2 cats. One of them is this big, fat, beautiful monster called Captain, and one of them is this small, sweet little angel called Lieutenant, and I found her in a drain last year, and she's very sweet. I love them both, even though Captain's the naughtiest cat you will ever meet.
Do you prefer reading ebooks or hard books?
I prefer to have like a physical copy of a book, because I like the smell of it and I like the weight of it in my hands. And I think, exactly. And I think because I work on a screen so much, I'm used to multitasking on a screen. So when I'm reading on a screen, I find it hard to pay attention. And when I'm reading a book, I can really like get myself lost in it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the best part about reading, because you can just get lost.
Yeah, the whole world just goes away. What do you prefer?
I'm reading, I mean hard book.
Hard book, yeah. And I also find like when I'm carrying a bag, it feels weirdly light if I don't have a book in it. I have to have a book and a notebook, otherwise it feels like I've left the house without something important.
Where's your favourite place to write?
Well, I have a little library in my house. So I have one of the spare rooms in my house. When I moved in, I decided I was going to make it into a library. And I've got like a lovely little chair there, it's got a beautiful window, and just books on all the walls. And that's my favourite place to write, because I can sit there in my chair, and my cat's sitting nearby, and a cup of tea on the other side, and it's just really serene.
You have your own library?
My own library. Living the dream.
And you
I'm running out of room in it.
You also work in a bookstore.
I know.
You're living the dream life.
I feel that way, yeah.
Do you remember the first book you ever read, or your favourite childhood book?
Well, I remember reading a lot of Enid Blyton. I think those were the first like books that I read. But I think one of my favourite books from my childhood was Anne of Green Gables. I really related to the main character because she read a lot, she loved to write, she talked too much, she often did things that were silly or like accidental, but she had a lot of big feelings and she always used big words to express them. And so when I was reading that book, I felt really connected to that character, and I think that's why one of the reasons Anne in my book Devil's Ballast has red hair, and I connected to her as a character because her name's Anne as well. There's all those little links to me too.
What's your biggest achievement so far?
You know, I think it's actually book 2. I think it's actually getting Devil's Ballast out. Because the whole way with Where, I was always wondering, is it just a fluke? You know, is it something that I will never be able to do again? But when Devil's Ballast came out, I was able to feel, okay, this is something that I might actually be able to keep on doing. So that was kind of a big achievement for me because it felt like it made the whole thing real. So I think, yeah. But at the same time, I hope that you can always be achieving something better next time. So hopefully the next time we have an interview in a couple of years or whatever it may be, I'll be able to say something else. So always pushing forward.
Do you have any big goals for the future or any new writing being released soon?
So I don't have anything contracted at the moment, but my dream and my big goal would be to have 3 books out by the time I'm 30. So I've got 3 years left, and we'll see how we go. But that would be really good. I think that's sort of the aim that I've set myself, and I'm trying to write quickly and write well so I can do that.
Do you have any advice for young writers?
Well, I do, but I think you're already doing it. Because my main advice to young writers is to keep connected to your writing community. And that's exactly what you're doing. So I think getting to know other writers and talking to lots of other people who love to write, because sometimes when you're writing it can feel really lonely and you can feel very anxious about it and you can feel quite isolated because you don't know if what you're writing is good or you don't know if it's going anywhere. And the more that you talk to other writers and the more you make friends with other writers, the less alone you feel. So when I was writing Devil's Ballast, there were lots of points where I felt that it wasn't going to go anywhere, I thought it wasn't any good. And I have depression and anxiety, so sometimes that really got on top of me. But then I would talk to other people from Squibbie and they'd say, oh, I felt exactly the same way when I was writing this, or have you tried this, or yes, I understand that feeling, have a cup of tea. And just those little moments of connection really helped me, and it's sort of the reason why the book came out. So I think you'll be able to read in any writing book or any internet article about, show, don't tell, and write a bit every day, and that sort of thing. But I think the thing that is really practical, and the thing that I've really learned, is to talk to other writers and make friends with them, because they're going to be your sort of best allies going forwards.
Definitely. I think the best thing to do is stay connected with your author friends, because otherwise you'll feel like alone and isolated.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons social media is so good at the moment as well, because you can have a writing community that's in America or in England or in the Bahamas. So you sort of make friends everywhere, and you can touch base and support each other even when sometimes you're busy with work or you can't leave the house or whatever it may be, because there's so many different ways to connect.
Thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Thank you so much for having me. I actually have something for you.
What?
You said you'd like to read it, so that's for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know I have his face now.
It's a library, it's always a happy place.
Fair enough, I mean it's surrounded by books.
Exactly.
So make sure to like and share so we can share how extraordinary Meg Caddy is.
And how extraordinary Amani is.
Thank you. Alright.